Greetings, folks. I jumped right in this morning, unlike yesterday where it took almost a half hour, 20 minutes for me to finally get on once I started the stream. Then I talked for 10 minutes with no signal, no mic. Oh, it was a day. It's been a week. So, in fact, a week ago today, I was out of commission. But things are good now. So, I guess we'll start with the usual. We're watching from the tomes here on Twitch. If you haven't, go check out Fox and Boar YouTube. Custom content there, including game playthroughs and a few other things I'm gonna be putting up there. Maybe later today I might get something up. I'll probably only stream for maybe an hour, and then I'm going to record something specifically for YouTube. Let's see. foxandboardgames.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Fox and Board Games. Thanks everyone for liking, subscribing, lurking, chatting. Had a nice chat yesterday. One of my regular viewers dropped in after about a month, which was nice. It seems like afternoon times are generally better than morning, which is an inverse from the summer, but I guess it has to do with people being back in school, people being, on a full work schedule, whatever. But I do think I decided to go on this morning just to go on this morning for a little bit around my usual time. I had a nice chat yesterday about Mothership, cool game, which I had heard of, but I hadn't really looked at yet. But he sent me a link to a PDF, pay what you want PDF, so you can just tip the designer, which of course we all appreciate. But had some cool systems in terms of stress and sanity. I've talked a lot about this before. We talked about it yesterday, that the kind of way sanity is treated in games is often reflective of not only the time that the game is published, but the era. And Call of Cthulhu, for instance, the whole idea of what sanity is and how it works is so dated. You don't develop bipolar disorder from seeing a great old one. That's not how it works. It's a brain chemical issue. We know that now. We didn't know it even 15, 20 years. Well, we knew it maybe 15, 20 years ago, but I know even growing up 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how we thought of mental illness and the mentally ill was very different than it is now. And we've progressed here in the West, and that's really good. But we need a different treatment. What sanity needs to be reflective of is immediate stress and the infliction of a PTSD sort of environment. No, but it was good. It was a good chat, and probably going to continue working on some of the stuff that I'm working on. So, what am I working on, you might ask? Well, I'm working on a scenario called Cold Plague for Call of Cthulhu. I'm doing a couple things simultaneously. I'm working on this and continuing, of course, work on the Harrowed Lands book. Starting tomorrow, I think I need to wrap up the in-person Tales scenario. We're supposed to play Saturday, and assuming that all goes, the group could progress beyond the point that I actually have prepped for. So we'll see how that goes. But this all ties in with some of the things I've mentioned. And I talked about this quite a bit yesterday. But, over at the Fox and Boar site, I've started promoting myself as a professional game master. And this has been a while coming. But in prep for that, I do have some games all set up here already. And one of them is this game, Cold Plague, which is kind of a short. I'm not authorized. Oh, it's because I'm not logged in on that. It really annoys me that you can't see. That's a weird link. That you can't see this unless you're logged into Roll20. That's. I've got issues with all these sites, and I just started a. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Profile on another site, and it's similar, and it kind of annoys me. I am logged into Roll20. I don't know why it logged me out of Roll20. Yeah, so. Okay. We'll do that then. But anyway, here's Cold Plague. Here's Call of Cthulhu. The kind of a quick intro scenario, and here are all my games that I'm running at the moment. On Roll20 in the next several months, I'm getting a little bit of interest. This has been up since Friday, maybe, and I just started talking about it yesterday, and I've already gotten some interest, which is nice. But I need to flesh this game out a little bit. And this will be running at Total Confusion, up in Massachusetts at the end of February. I'll be running this in person, along with the 2 scenarios of Tales of the Harrowed Land and another Call of Cthulhu scenario, which is actually ironically probably the most complete thing that I have done so far, because it's actually an abbreviation of a much bigger game that I ran. It's a component of a bigger game I ran a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm going to tighten it up and clean it up a little bit and just get it to a 4-hour slot. So, if anyone's interested, shoot me a line either through Discord. I do have a Discord here, and I do. I'm not on it like some people who are on it all the time, but I do occasionally lurk on here, especially when I'm also on this environment. I'm on this chat. Let me get an invite link here. Invite people. Wow, it looks like some people left my server. That's rather funny. And I know who the people are. I know who the person is. So I'll just keep my mouth shut about that. But not that I care. You know what they say as you get older? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. If you don't want to be in my group, it's your deal, your prerogative. So anyway, I do. If you're not on chat right at the moment, you'd have to copy and paste that. But the server is Fox and Boar, and if you request an invite, if I remotely know who you are, I'll put you on there. Fox and Boar Games, Fox and Boar Tavern. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Working on this. There's Nightbot responding to me. Yeah, you're on it, Nightbot. At least you haven't banned anybody today. If everyone's enjoying getting ready for the big snowstorm coming across the country, I just love it that here in the Mid-Atlantic, just, above in Pennsylvania, just above Philadelphia, it's kind of like, oh, look, we're going to get snow. And it warms up to 45 degrees and rains, or even worse, 35 degrees and rains, which is what it did yesterday and Sunday, and it was just miserable. I like cold, I like rain. Together, they're both awful. So, I'll be running this. I also just started an account on Start Playing Games. That's me. Oh, look, I have 2 reviews. Yay! Um, two good reviews. I haven't got any bad ones yet. This is kind of like a cross between Tinder and Rate My Professor for game masters. It's this kind of like, all right, well, at least here I can moderate it. I remember on Rate My Professor when it first became a thing and people were using it and I actually paid attention to it. I just had one student who really hated me, and I hated them, quite frankly. And obviously it showed because they sent me this. They put several really nasty reviews, including one that just had nothing true in it. And it was like literally stuff that can get you fired. Now, fortunately, most institutions at that time knew this was just BS. But I wrote rate my professor and was like, look, if I have to get a union lawyer, I'm willing to get a union lawyer. I'm in a union school. And they took that review down right away. This I can vet the reviews, and as I said to my friend Blake, who game together, since high school, which was a long time ago for both of us. He's I said it's kind of bunk that I get to, approve your review. So like if someone writes me a really bad review, I could just not approve it. Or maybe I will. Again, I'm kind of beyond worrying about it as long as it's true, as long as it's legitimate. But at the same time, yeah, it's having somebody come on and decide they're just gonna pan me just to pan me because they don't like me personally, even if they've never played a game with me. Then, I'd obviously rather have the power to say that's not a real review. So, yeah. So that's where I'm at. So if you're interested in having me do some GMing, check these out. It's kind of weird being in this world that this is a thing. I was just sitting here like yesterday, like, wait, there's like a personal want ads, facilitation site for game mastering. And I guess it's cool. It's cool because you might, get this group of people who don't get to play often, who want a GM. I'll take it. By the way, if you're on my Twitch stream, if you're a subscriber or rather a follower and you're interested in one of these, shoot me a private note because I will definitely, I can definitely get you into a spot and not so worry to start not worry so much about charging. I mean, I put these up here just, okay, sure. That might take months to get rolling, but that's okay. I have time. For the first time in my life, I have time. But there's also this Linktree account where you could see all the things I'm going to be running. But let's get back to business. Let's get back to work. Working on Cold Plague. I mean, I'm working on the scenario that I just said you might want to play in. So, if you ever think you're going to play in this scenario, feel free to just skip this part of the stream. But this is about finding out players are part of the Massachusetts Medical Association, which was founded in the late 1800s. This is the 1922. Okay. Time to do a little research. This is a good time to do some research. And this is really interesting. I mean, I feel like I know a lot. I know a lot about a lot of historical stuff, but I just happen to do a little bit like, well, let's see. Representations. But I found some really interesting historical deities associated with plague that I was unaware of. Now, of course, you're playing Call of Cthulhu, so everything goes through this filter of the mythos. But A lot of the mythos stuff was originally based in Egyptian mythology. So Egyptian and Greek mythology. So I find it interesting to go in and kind of put it through that, start from that basis, and then put it through the Lovecraft filter, through the mythos filter. Hmm. Well, we all know about Nurgle. We know about Nurgle from, you know, from Warhammer or the band Behemoth, one of the two. Interesting. It's funny when you're reading this real history and then you see this intersection with something RPG or fantasy or whatever. All right. You pin. Well, what do you know? Hung out there. No, see, I didn't know about Reshef, and this is really interesting to me because I knew a lot about historical deities, but I didn't know about Reshef, an Egyptian plague god. I kind of assumed that one of the other more popular gods would be, well, and again there were so many gods and goddesses in all the different eras of Egypt. Unfortunately, that's we just like everything else we kind of think of. Oh, Egypt, it's this one thing, you know. It's definitely not this one thing. Yeah, here we are. Here's the connection. So there's the direct link to Nurgle. That's what I was wondering. I'm like the name, some of the namings, especially the um, additional names of the he goats or a brush of the birds. Interesting. There we go. bellicose nature became a fire, disease, and abdominal pain. Interesting. Didn't know he appears in the Hebrew Bible. I guess that actually really makes sense. Well, that's rather funny. That's just what I was looking for. Chef. Wow. So, what we're dealing with is this being Reshef that appears in the Hebrew Bible and is believed to have been an analog or a later incarnation of figures like Nurgle. These very early plague gods that are also associated with war. Reshef is also associated with plague, flames, and vultures. And it's interesting because they refer to him as Reshef of the birds in one of the translations. And they also have some other relationships. Now, what's interesting about this, I mean, there's a lot of things that are interesting about this, but what's most interesting about this to me is the number of times disease and cankers and plague and cancer are equated with flames. And I'm just thinking of the Norse rune Konaz, which by all accounts means disease, it means boil, it means something coming to the surface. There are some renditions of it which describe it as a torch flame, and though that's kind of a more new agey, after the fact interpretation. There's some thought that that association came from using a torch to reveal a canker and burn it, or also the torch, the pain, the burning of the sore of a cancerous or canker type sore, creating this sensation of flames. So people always are like, "Oh no, it's the way, lighting your way. It's this bright, bright flame to illuminate you." I'm like, actually, in the original, I hate to be the actually guy, but in the original translations, it was about disease. So, yeah, and there's a similar analogy going on here. Now they is referred to in cuneiform Lama, the special version of Rashef called Rashef of the he goats. If we're playing Call of Cthulhu, that of course has all these connotations. And Rashef of the birds. And what's really interesting about this is I have this whole other story that I've been working on dealing with this vulture-headed being that starts appearing to in the scenario. And I hadn't really specifically thought of it as a plague being, a plague related being, but it definitely, I could definitely make this leap. Created with Hermes, and that's interesting too. Hermes has been popping up a whole lot recently in research. Usually info with Nurgles, right? Yeah, that was obvious to me. All right. Well, there's some really solid info. how to bring all this into the game, and that's the challenge. And people kind of wonder, like they often sit down at my games that are like this, and I don't use a lot of stock stuff, like finding a statue of Cthulhu would be really, that's what everybody's expecting. But then when you realize you're dealing with something, the air will heat up. Destructively contagious disease, a plague. I think we'll be bookmarking this one. So I might have to go. Legendary destructive bird of prey. I mean, this all feeds into kind of where I was going with some of this anyway, which is really good. All right, cool. So now we go back to all of that just to kind of start refining my idea for this scenario. Now again, I can be very simple about this and just stick stuff from the books in these games, but I've never gotten any personal satisfaction from that. I've always much rather spent my time creating a unique scenario with unique challenges. Like here I talked a little bit about Castle Gotha and Cthulhu. I'm going to just delete that. Castle Gotha's really little well-known mythos entity. It's not even in any of the official books or canon. That supposedly is this parasitic kind of plague entity that came from the same place as Cthulhu or has attached itself, some places call it the wife of Cthulhu. I mean, again, that all starts to get really, far outside of the original concepts of the mythos. That's like this whole idea of the great old ones being, this kind of one. There were originally these two sides, that the great old ones and the outer gods were kind of these opposing forces. One was more benevolent than the other. I think that was August Derleth who started that. And that just doesn't make any sense in the scope of the mythos as this kind of consuming, corruptive cosmic force that is beyond human reasoning, beyond good and evil. And then somebody later on, I don't remember which of the authors, started assigning the elements to the mythological, the mythos deities, and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, again, these are basically these atomic creatures that have come from somewhere else, these alien entities, and trying to start to stratify them like that just never made sense to me. So that's also why I kind of try to avoid some of that extraneous mythology, some of that extraneous stuff that was written much later. And not that it's not good, and people use it really well in games, and some of it has made its way into the original, the official source books. But kind of like, I think you could do things that are a little more surprising to the players. Okay. So this is meant to be a kind of a 2 to 3 hour scenario. It's meant to be intro. It's going to use the quick start rules. I will not I will be handing out characters. If somebody's really experienced and wants to bring a character in, but they would have to be starter level basically. You know, they can't come in with a 20% Cthulhu mythos and a spell book. Again, I once the game gets to that point, I find it kind of tap out on it anyway because that takes the horror out of it. You know, this is meant to be a little bit more of an investigative but straightforward scenario. You know, I can't have them in a 2 to 3 hour scenario. I can't have them spend 45 minutes trying to figure out where to go next. That's not fun anymore in campaigns. And hopefully, everybody who wants to play with me or who has played with me maybe has outgrown that. I have, you know, at this point, I'm like, point them where they need to go. You want them to solve the story. You don't want them to spend hours muddling through this. At least I don't. My satisfaction of that is long dead. So I've kind of started breaking this up into scenes. So let's see. Shift. The trading post. Nature was in there looking for a particular artifact. Fact. It was on the ship, but it did. So this is where it gets dicey. So again, I need to give them enough information to get to the next part of the scenario, but not so much information that they feel railroaded. And again, I in my mind, I'm already like, the problem with this clue is this could send them off in so many different directions. I mean, I'm thinking of having a long and a short version, kind of a beginner and advanced version of this scenario, where if they take a certain course of action, they will definitely end up in this spot and can move forward. Whereas they might also say, well, let's, if it's an advanced group and they want to play 4 hours, they might say, well, let's go investigate this and role play this. And I'm fine with that. You know, I like longer, in depth scenarios, but I'm finding that might be more beneficial. Let's see if my events have been scheduled. All my events have been scheduled. Host. Oh, my games are scheduled. Queued for scheduling. Scheduled. Oh, I got a lot to do. Whose idea was this? Oh, I love it. The only thing I've ever really loved in life. I mean, I love doing art. I love doing photos. I love doing all this. But that was always a means to an end to me. I really love running and writing for games. I love music too. I love doing music. I love that as much as this. I've got myself a full schedule. Ice Cube for 10 Saturday, 10 a.m. We're running all day for several days straight up at Total Confusion in Massachusetts. It's very exciting. Artifact. So, I mean, the flow chart to this is I was once asked how I developed scenarios. I said it's kind of a flow chart. So, I mean, the obvious thing is to point them to who was looking for artifact. To gate that layer location. Right? And I'm going to take a quick break here. And I shall be back in a moment. right. All right, so okay, say someone unseemly. Look vaguely familiar. Oh no, was in asking about a particular ship, right, a particular artifact on the ship, right? On the ship. Oh, right. A particular artifact from the ship. One of the crewmen ship. This would have been 2 days earlier. We'll say arbitrarily. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. 4 days earlier, one of the crewmen, for dying, said one of the scavengers said they didn't get all the boxes. Was retrieved. Okay, so let's see. Some different scenes going on here. Started with it. This is how most of my scenarios start. People have asked me how I design these things, and this is kind of it. I just start throwing out these notes and these threads and then tie them all together. Sometimes I'm more successful at the tying together than others. I've really, in the past year, started to become very conscious of giving the players enough information, but not too many threads. And as I've said, I ran into this the last long-term game I ran. The players just kind of were overwhelmed at some points, and they didn't know what to do next. There was just too much, but nothing solid pushed this way forward. And, you forget as a game master that not everybody can read your mind. Oh, well, they'll know where to go. No, they don't know where to go. It's like when you're playing a game and the game master throws out this series of threads. You have no idea where it goes. They have no idea where it goes. statues. 2. Most all who were on the ship seem to on the ship died of the plague in the first wave. 3. Not everything. They quote didn't get all the boxes. 4. Find out location of ship. 5. Ship of horrors. I'm just gonna call it that. Ship of horrors, just like that. Not 5. At the trading post. So I have 3 scenes. So the ship of horrors will be hunt through the husk of the ship on the frozen beach. Run into semi-decayed, gnawed upon, rotting corpses. Corpses. It's winter, so they're not really rotting. Find 2 things. Tracks away from the ship are entirely human. Log addressee pointing to the unseemly fellow in Provincetown. Recipient of boxes of artifacts from the Near East. Find things. Statue or artifact. Possibly. Again, some of this might be reserved for a longer play version of this scenario. This could be just these four or 5 locations will be for the 2-hour version, because they're going to need at least a half hour probably, or 20 minutes of explaining the basic rules. Though Call of Cthulhu is extremely easy. Roll percentiles. Is it under? Oh, you're okay. If not, you're not okay. That's how easy it is. Location scenes. Sure, so the arrival is just going to be like 5 minutes. And they have to go around the cold camp. Arrival at the plague camp. It's basically where they're sending people who are not doing so hot from the cold plague. It'll be up in Truro. Spending the night at the farmhouse outside of Truro. At the farmhouse mission. This all started in Provincetown. That's a lot for that. The Trading Post, Provincetown. One, the Trading Post. Off the dunes. The Ship of Hearts have to navigate the dunes in the winter. Beach. I have these certain scenes in mind, like the cinematic version. This lone figure in like a duster or a long trench coat lurking out on the beach in the middle of this storm. Let's see. So like I originally had, they were going to go to the first reported cases and talk to the families, and I'm like, one, that's not going to be very interesting. Two, that's going to take way more time. This probably take 45 minutes just to do that by the time players role play it out. I mean, there were even a couple times in the Unpaxed Tales game where a couple people were really getting into role playing. I didn't want to stop them because they were so into it, but I was also kind of like, ooh, if you guys want to finish in time. But I figured I'd just let them role play. Worst came to worst, I shortened a combat scenario. No one complains about killing an enemy faster. Um, Greetings to the friends who have popped on and are lurking. Okay, so possible ghouls or something weirder, zombies or something similar. Shark attack might be fun. There's never any shark attacks around Cape Cod. Freezing. that's another threat, right? So my goal is to break this down to 4 separate locations / scenes, all of which had meaning within this scenario. Again, for this kind of free floating D&D campaign, you can have stuff where the players go out shopping for 4 hours. Yeah, in a now that'd be a good convention scenario, right? Let's go shopping. Spending spree in a magical kingdom. Very high magic. Which, by the way, I'll announce this again at the end. High magic, low magic, middle magic. What defines them? How do we define them? How do they impact developing a game world or players playing your characters in these worlds. Chat tomorrow night. And it's the last encounter. So there should be some connection at this point. I always like to think like this is set in 1922, right? So technology, communication, all those things are so limited compared to what we have today. Like how different would this scenario be in in 2020, 2022? Well, you just take a picture of this creature on the beach, this thing on the beach, this person, you know. You just follow it and let your satellite make a trail as to where it's going. Back to one of the coves, through which is a tunnel. So mostly in a lot of Cthulhu games, there's like a lot of research. That's again a thing that if I run this as a longer scenario, and there's another longer scenario I'm going to run called Mother of Monsters, which does have does have a heavier research component, and everybody's a university grad student or something. So at this point, there's a tunnel. Could be very dangerous. Shortcut to the... Not a shortcut to the temple. And then 4, House of the Ghoul. Address C, recipient of items. All the what ifs start to kick in too. Like, well, what if they don't actually go to the ship? Well, they say, well, I'm not going to go to the ship. I don't think that's going to happen. So basically, they have to end up. So the items isn't a dilapidated house near one of the cemeteries. Of course, where else? Find it. Quote. Abandoned. Find entrance to underground temple. Through ghouls, the sorcerer, to get to the statue. Perform ritual and destroy the statue. Now it's really interesting because I had this idea of how they were going to destroy the statue, and it was totally correlated by my research on these plague gods and goddesses. So there you got it. That's what you got. That's kind of the breakdown. I just have to go flush it out and make it playable, right? I mean, could I sit down and run this right now, make up a few names? Absolutely. Would I do that? No. Especially not if people are coming to play this as part of an event. A little bit of action there going on. Fight through or outwit. Maybe they want to... I mean, there are definitely going to be a few ghouls that are going to have to fight who are going to be guarding the temple area. But, you know, maybe they're going to distract some of them by throwing a corpse from the ship in there. If they figure it out. All right. One of my goals for today: get that outline done. Start writing it. Good. So the other thing I'm working on a little bit more intently is the world overview. And this is, as I said yesterday, this is a narrative form overview. Instead of just plopping down, this is the history of the world, I'm having two characters discuss it, which isn't, you know, horrendously original either, but it's better, I think. It's more interesting to read than just this block of text. You know, and I want to give the flavor of the world. One of my goals is to get the flavor of this world switched over to Tales of the Harrowed Land. As soon as they step in and open the book. You know, I don't want them to feel like they're reading a manual. So, again, I've got it because it's kind of outlined. Backgrounds based on world rules, game structure, dice, types, challenges, actions, conversational rules, running the game, the world. Greetings, folks who jumped on recently. So I just got done working on a Call of Cthulhu scenario, kind of getting the framework of it out there. That I'll be running both online and at an upcoming convention, and probably with my regular groups for fun. Let's see. Moved over to Tales of the Harrowed Land, where I'm working on some of the world material, the background material, trying to get it concisely out to a potential reader or player. I'll be on a little bit longer. Not a very long stream today. But content packed. Unlike yesterday, I was on quite a while, but I had several mishaps where I just totally derailed the whole thing. True lore. I wrote some of this a couple nights ago, like midnight, and I'm like, oh, punctuation, yeah. to consult my timeline for the game too. I have a pretty extensive world timeline. I'm like, okay, which happened first? Which thing happened first to cause problems? All right, friends. Thanks for tuning in. Got this writing going on. Kind of jumped right from one thought to the other. 1920s Call of Cthulhu to writing some of the back history. I mean, the back history for Tales of the Harrowed Land, of course, is already written. This is just largely filling in blanks for the players. Again, a lot of the players kind of haven't even gone and investigated the actual deep history of the world, and part of that is that it's not really been in a legible form. It's been kind of in these notes that I've had for them to take a look through, but it's not in a very approachable form. So that's one of my goals, is to start the book off with this much more approachable format. All right, friends. Think I'm gonna call it for today. I'll continue some work offline. Just wanted to come on for a bit, start getting my schedule back together. Don't forget, tomorrow night, be having ourselves a little tavern chat. Finally, after several weeks away. It's been rescheduled twice. High magic, low magic, medium magic, or middle magic in RPGs. How it affects your world building choices, how it affects your character choices and your character play experience. Got a bunch of people interested. Again, unfortunately, I've had to cancel it 2 weeks in a row, or should I say postpone it. We're on for this week. We're on tomorrow night, barring anything extremely unusual. We will be there and we will have one of our chats. So come on and join us, whether you see this later or have watched it live. Big thanks to everyone who was on today. I had a few people, not a lot of chatting, but people popping in and out. People lurking, which I always appreciate as well. Twitch TV from the Tomes. YouTube at Fox and Board Games. Stop back there regularly. You got some more stuff, hopefully by the end of the week. Custom content for Fox and Board Games. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Fox and Board Games. Please like, subscribe, follow. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for all the well wishes over the last week. I really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.